In episode 7 we were discussing cables, in particular speaker cables and interconnects, and their perceived value in a hi-fi system. And I stated that while I'm a believer in the importance of choosing the right speaker cables, interconnects I didn't place as great an amount of importance on them, as through the years I have failed to hear the difference between cheap examples and their more pricey counterparts. And in episode 8 I upgraded my speaker cable and gave you a full detailed breakdown of it, and that video appears to have been well received. And in that video I issued a challenge to the cable manufacturers such as AudioQuest and QED and the like, and said, if you believe that your interconnects can do better than something like this, then send me an example and I shall do a listening test and a review for you. Well, I didn't hear back from any of those companies. However, an individual contacted me and says, I've got an interconnect, I don't need it, perhaps you might like it and fancy giving that a listen. And me, the person on a low income, stay-at-home carer, I was like, well, yes please, by all means, send it to me. Let me give it a try. And this was what I was sent by that kind individual. It's made by a British company called Black Rhodium. I'd never heard of them myself, but some of their speaker cables and interconnects have been very well received with the likes of What Hi-Fi magazine and other reviewers. And this is called The Twist, and no prizes for guessing why they've called it that. And is based on an existing speaker cable of theirs, because they have issued a speaker cable called The Twist, and it uses this very same cable stock. And that did well as a speaker cable, and they decided to adapt that very cable to interconnects. So I can only assume that the positive is in the middle and the negative acts as a ground and is wrapped around the outside. So what immediately stands out with these is each plug has 2 wires going into it. They've doubled them up. Double the cable, and as the name suggests, it's twisted because they believe that will reject interference. And part of me can try and understand that. Yeah, the other thing to bear in mind is that these are, you can see the arrows there, they are directional. They're to be used in the right direction, so this end would feed to the amplifier and that end to the CD player. Always got to have them in the right direction, apparently, we are told. And by twisting it, what they were aiming to discourage was the loop aerial effect, which I guess makes sense, because if you've got it plugged into your amplifier and CD player and it's resting in that position, there is the chance that it may behave like an AM loop aerial. And well, I do know all about AM radio interference. I'm originally from London, and I used to live in Finchley, which is in North London. And not too many miles away, near Barnet, in a place lovingly known as Saffron Green, they've got 4 AM transmitter masts which transmit Capital Gold on 1548 kHz and LBC on 1152 kHz. And the Capital Gold transmission is particularly strong, 75 kilowatts, all pumped in the direction of London, and it is a very strong transmission. So strong that we used to be able to, in that property in Finchley, we could pick up Capital Gold on our door chain That's how powerful the signal was. You know, when we put that chain on the door and there wasn't quite a perfect connection, you could hear it in the door chain. And if ever our telephone line played up, there were times when I could hear Capital Gold playing down the phone line. You know, the transmission was so strong, and, you know, cables, if they're not made properly, will pick up interference. And so I had no trouble picking up Capital Gold on various household items at home. And in order to alleviate that, Black Rhodium, they've twisted the cable, because apparently that will minimise the chance of picking up such radio interference and other interference, of course. So that's all well and dandy. Yes, rejecting interference, that's an important thing to consider when designing these cables. But what about sound quality? Is it possible to hear a difference between that and that? You know, is there a difference? You know, will my 46-year-old ears be able to hear the difference between these two? Well, that's what I wish to find out, and thanks to the kindness of the chap out there. He doesn't want to be named, but he's from Whistlesea. Okay, that's all I'll say. Thanks very much for this. I've been testing this out. I've tested it out with my CD player, obviously, because that's where you're expected to use one. And also with my phono preamplifier, because vinyl naturally has that warm, smooth sound, and will a cable like this pep it up a bit? And what about CD listening? You want absolute clarity out of your CD. Will this provide it? Well, let's go and find out. Okay, well, I've done some extensive testing with both the CD player and the phono preamp. And with the phono preamp, I have to say I didn't notice much. In fact, I'm happy to say I didn't really notice any difference in sound when swapping between the Black Rhodium cable and the cheapo £3 OFC cable. It's all sounded pretty uniform to me. But with the CD, I did notice a difference, and I'm astounded at the difference that I noticed. Because the CD player is known for its warmth and its smoothness, naturally the first... Sorry, move that a bit while I stand up. Not very mobile. The first CD I reached for, naturally, was the Life album by Simply Red, because it's a real bass stew of an album. It's very rich in bass, smooth in treble, and on the wrong system it can sound big and ploddy and almost uncomfortable. But on here, all sounds pretty smooth to me, and very listenable and very enjoyable to listen to. And I'll be honest with you, I'm about to share a revelation with you here. Are you sure of the road that I thought I knew Mick Hucknall's voice back to front. I've been a Simply Red fan for years. I especially like their earlier stuff. And I thought I knew his voice inside out. Every strand and every texture, every fibre of the texture of his voice, because his voice just has a sound and a style all of its own, and it's instantly recognisable. and I thought I knew his voice inside out. Well, that was until I heard it with this cable. I put this song on. I've heard this song so many times, on so many systems, you know, through so many speakers and so many earphones, and I was astounded to be hearing a part of his voice that I just never heard before. It's impossible to explain it.
So now we've got our independence. Ooh, what are we gonna do with it?
I really wish I could explain it, but it's subjective. You either hear it or you don't. And the fact that at 46 years old, having been so cynical regarding these cables over the years, to suddenly be able to hear the difference between, you know, the cheaper cable, which to my ears sounded acceptable, and this slightly pricey cable, which promises to deliver that little bit more that you were somehow missing before. And I have to say, you know, it just made me enjoy this track so much more than I've ever enjoyed it before, because I've heard it so many times. And other tracks on the album, this one has a very tricky bass. There are a few bass notes there that are difficult to reproduce properly through speakers, but they sound that bit tighter through this cable. It really is hard to find the words to describe the difference that this cable has made when listening to things on this player. That generous bass has been brought to order, is no longer clumsy, is actually tuneful, and the fastest, most delicate bass notes are just audible. They don't crash into each other and sound like just one muffled note. And the treble, well, it's not necessarily brighter, but you know, the clarity is still there.
It's lonely out on the range, that open space they call.
But overall, it's just, you know, it's such a joyous listen through this cable, and I've been feeding it several discs, thinking, I wonder how it'll make this sound. And this is also an occasionally muddy sounding album. John Holt and his 1000 Volts of Holt compilation.
Take the ribbon from your hair.
I mean, reggae music will always be a rich bass stew, but it's rendered that bit more listenable through this cable. It really is astounding.
I knew a man Bojangles and he danced for you. In war.
And having always been cynical, and yet this time finding my ears opened and thinking, wow, how have I not heard that before? Yes, I'm hearing it now. What gives? You know, where's this come from? I like it. So this cable apparently sells for £35 to £40 for a ½ metre pair. You can buy it in longer lengths. Something tells me that sadly it's been discontinued by the company. Although there are outlets out there that still sell it, so it's not as if I'm recommending something that just isn't available to you. I recommend this cable. I really do, you know. It costs about £35 and, you know, to some people that's a good amount of money to spend on a cable that just goes between a CD player and an amplifier. When you buy that CD player, you get a cable in a box. and yes, it does the job. But this black Rhodium Twist cable, it's a revelation, it really is. It's hard to find the words to describe it, and as old as my ears are and as limited their frequency response is, now I'm not missing something. It's a delight. I wouldn't say I'm this new convert to audio, these funky interconnects. I mean, there are many out there that go for 3, 4, even 5-figure sums. I'm never going to go that far, that's for sure. But this was sent to me as a gift. He said, here, try this out. I've tried it, and it satisfies me that I'm able to hear something out of it and not have to push it to one side and like say, well, that was a load of use. I heard no difference, because I did, and I'm delighted and I'm very thankful. So, Black Rhodium, the Twist. It's available as a speaker cable, and it had good reviews at the time, but newer speaker cables apparently do better, according to what Hifi. And the interconnects version, it's still out there. Go seek it out. It comes recommended by me, and there are a lot worse things you could do with £35. But otherwise, thanks for watching, thanks for listening.